Good day, Sir Porto, and to all our respected panelists. We are Group 2, and today we will be presenting our research entitled The Perceptions of UST Men's Basketball Team on Online and Face-to-Face Training Effectiveness and Their Performance in UAAP Season 84. I'm DS Vince Philip M.
I am Abadwan Carlos T.
I am Narciso Lian Kiersi.
I am not Daniel.
I'm Santos Zildjian M.
And I am Trinidad Juan Miguel.
Background of the study. To start with our presentation, I would like to discuss the background of our study. During the COVID-19 pandemic, sports activities, if not all, were prohibited to reduce the spread of the ongoing virus. Due to the prohibition, sport teams opted to conduct their training online. According to Wong 2016, online sports training is convenient, flexible, and super cheap way for any upcoming or current athletes to partake. After a while, as the pandemic was somehow put under control, face-to-face training was now being allowed under the agreement that it will be conducted while observing health protocols. Eventually, during UAAP Season 84, selected sports were now allowed to engage in competitions. According to Cherry 2022, perception refers to our sensory experience of the world. It's through this experience that we gain information about the environment around us. With this, our team aims to find the perception of UST men's basketball team with regards to their online and face-to-face training and correlate it with their individual performance in UAP Season 84. Next slide, please.
Theoretical framework. For our theoretical framework, we chose three theories that would best relate to our study. The first theory is the theory of self-determination by Ryan and Deci in 1985. This theory states that people are motivated to grow and change by three innate and universal psychological needs: competence, connection, and autonomy. In accordance with the online training and face-to-face training, these three physiological needs should be met in order for development to take place. The second theory is the adaptive structuration theory by Poulet in 1994, which was cited by Nick Lethbridge in 2003. The theory suggests that structures in technology are intertwined with structures in action, which means in application, the reason why online training can be conducted is because of the availability of technology. Lastly, is the self-perception theory by Dari J. Bem in 1972, which states that people tend to understand their internal states, such as attitudes and emotions, partially through deducing them from their observation of their own behavior. Since our study aims to find the perception of UST men's basketball towards their online and face-to-face training effectiveness, this theory strengthens the probability of a correlation between their perceptions to their individual performance. Next slide, please.
Research design and the description of respondents. The research design of our study is a quantitative correlational design. Since our study will be correlating multiple variables with one another. With regards to our respondents, this study encompasses male student athletes in the basketball team from the University of Santo Tomas, who participated in the UAAP Season 84. Their ages varied from 19 to 27 years old. To be more specific, we have chosen those athletes who are in the face-to-face training or in a bubble setup inside the university. The men's basketball team was chosen because they are more accessible. Most of them were present at the time of the study and able to provide a detailed report on their daily activities. Next slide, please.
Presentation and analysis of results. For the analysis of results, we separated its discussion by the statement of the problem. In SOP 1, it states that what is the demographic profile of the men's basketball team in terms of age and degree program. The respondents' ages ranged from 19 to 25, which could indicate a variety of experiences on the team or in other areas. According to the standard deviation of 2.04, the group is normally 22 years old, with greater frequencies in the range of 20 to 24. In fact, 85% are in their age range, with 35% being between the ages of 23 and 24. The elder members made up only 15% of the total. For the degree program, student athletes dominated the basketball squad, with IPEA FSM scoring 7 out of 10. The team's lone engineering student contributed only 5%. Apparently, 5 athletes showed an interest in the sphere of business after their sporting careers. The majority of athletes may continue to work in sports as coaches or team management in the future. Next slide, please. For the SOP2, it states what is the level of perception of the student athletes on online training and face-to-face training. In online training, only 2 items are strongly agreed upon by the student athletes as shown by a weighted mean of 3.6 in the next slide. The respondents had the necessary devices for online training and thus could complete the task without being in the same room with the trainers and other team members. The respondents agree on online training in terms of space for training, time, access, and technology on internet connections, and sufficient knowledge on overcoming technical difficulties. A very important aspect to note was the fact that the student athletes can focus even in the presence of distraction. The respondents mostly agree on online instruction as seen by an aggregate weighted mean of 3.31. The next slide. Next slide, please. Next slide again, please. So for the face-to-face training, except for the notion that face-to-face instruction has reinforced the efficacy of the training, the student athletes highly agree on all of the issues. The weighted mean of the replies on this item was 3.1, the lowest of any item. The aggregated weighted mean of 3.69 indicates unequivocally that face-to-face training is preferred over online training. Among the many benefits of face-to-face training are the focus on the training, a high level of engagement and involvement, adequate time and pace, and the requirement of knowledge and skills. These are some of the additional reasons that contributed to the athletes' apparent preference for face-to-face training. Next slide, please. Next slide.
So for SOP3, what is the level of performance of the student athletes during UAAP season 84? It is obvious that the field goal percentage of the student athletes in UAAP season 84 was not a pleasant experience. A large fraction of athletes, 35%, achieve only 0 to 9.9 field goal percentage. With a 40 to 49.9 field goal percentage, just 10% was reviewed, falling short of the 50% criterion. This supported by a mean field goal percentage of 17.45. The standard deviation is relatively substantial, indicating diversity in performance with higher frequency centered in the 4.45 to 30.35 region. According to the data, the student athletes' performance was still lacking. Next slide, please. For SOP4, what are the rank of the student athletes in terms of their performance in UAAP season 84? According to the table, the potential high performers in the team were only 2, or 10% of the responders. A total of 35% rated 3rd through 11th. The highest percentage was 45%. In actuality, 4 of the athletes were given a 0.0 field goal percentage and compromised the group with the worst performance in the games. Next slide, please.
For SOP5, is there a significant correlation between the performance of the student athletes and their perception of online training and face-to-face training? The calculated R between the student athletes' performance in UAAP season 84 and their perception of online training is 0.20, which is substantially lower than the critical value of 0.5 0.444 at the 5% level of significance. As a result of this finding, the null hypothesis was accepted. There's statistically significant relationship between the two variables. This finding implies that while the respondents demonstrated perception on their online training, it did not significantly contribute to their game performance as evidenced by their field goal percentages. However, the computed value of R of 0.656 between game performance and perception on face-to-face training exceeds the critical value of 0.444. This finding is sufficient to reject the null hypothesis and argue that their game performance is considerably influenced by their face-to-face instruction. It should be emphasized that student athletes had a more positive attitude toward face-to-face training. It not only increased their knowledge and skills, but it also increased their self-confidence, which might be a crucial element in winning the game. According to Sports Psychology 2020, one strategy for players to improve their performance in sports competition is to work to establish confidence and sustain focus, or address perfectionism and eliminate concerns of failure. Next slide, please.
For the last statement of the problem, which is there a significant association between the student athlete's rank in the game and the profile variables? We will now focus first on the age. The null hypothesis was accepted based on the estimated chi-square value of 1.834, which is significantly less than the critical value of 9.488. At the 5% of level of significance, this finding indicates that the ranking of individual athletes based on their performance in the game is not significantly related to age. As a result, it cannot be claimed that the older athletes perform better than the younger ones. As shown in the table, there were young athletes who received higher ranks in the game, as well as older athletes who received lower ranks. So for the degree program, the table clearly shows that the responders were overwhelmingly from the IPEA Fitness Sports Management program. The majority of them were simply in the average rank group. The lone engineering student performed well. The resulting chi-square value of 4.954 did not exceed the crucial value of 9.488 at the 5% level of significance, resulting in the null hypothesis being accepted. As a result, it can be asserted that the athlete's degree program is not a significant factor in their game performance. Next slide, please.
So for the recommendation, lastly, after this recommendation, we recommended that the study is replicated in other sports in UAAP aside from basketball. Since our team was not able to do so due to time constraints and availability of materials, also we recommended that the future researchers use other bases of sports of performance in the game that may be used besides field goal percentage, because there are other factors to consider in the game performance for an athlete to be considered effective or good.
So that is all for our presentation for today. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day.